The story of Noah and the flood is and here's how we know. In 1996, this skeleton was found on the banks of the Columbia River near Kennewick, Washington. It was initially thought to have been a recent murder victim until carbon dating analysis placed the remains at around 8,500 years old. And Kennewick Man isn't the only case to consider. The Spirit Cave mummies were discovered in the state of Nevada dating around 10,000 years old, and the Onzig child was discovered in Montana dating around 12,500 years old, the remains of which were being repatriated in this photograph. Now, I very well could stop here since all of these remains predate Adam and Eve by a few millennia, and you can't exactly have people walking around before the first human couple. But wait, there's more. Now, if a worldwide flood were to happen as described in the Bible, then anybody living before the flood would have died out in that flood, not leaving any descendants behind, indicating that all contemporary native people of North and South America are descendants of Noah and his family 4,000 years ago. This creates an interesting opportunity to test whether this scenario is true or false. Because if it can be determined that these remains belong to an ancestral group of today's native people, then that means that a global flood where only 8 people survived on an ark ever took place. But if the global flood did indeed take place, then these remains would not show any genetic affiliation with any particular group living today. Now, unfortunately for the people who believe this story, ancient DNA that was sampled from these specimens reveal that they have genetic markers that are consistent with and unique to contemporary Native Americans living today and no other group of people. The haplotypes of these samples are up above. Now, I should take the time to explain what a haplotype is, since it further strengthens my point. A haplotype is a set of recognizable mutations that are unique to particular lineages of people, both on the paternal side, meaning DNA that you've inherited from your dad and his dad and his dad and his dad and so forth, and the maternal line, your mother and her mother and her mother and her mother and so forth. Now, DNA mutates at a fairly irregular rate, which means that we could take all the differences between the whole human population and clock backwards when the latest common ancestor of all humans living today existed. Now, if the flood really happened, our latest common ancestor would have lived no earlier than 4,000 years, Noah and his family. However, genetic data reveals that our latest common ancestor between all humans existed somewhere between 140,000 years and 300,000 years ago, which is entirely consistent with the fossil record.